Today we're going to be looking at two things: the middle adulthood, which is some people would call that midlife. It's a later adulthood period. And so we're going to be looking at the middle adulthood, and we're going to focus on menopause. And we're also going to look at also the challenges that our men also have. They call that, there's a little term for it, they call that manopause. So, and we're also going to look at self-love. What does that look like for us? God bless you. So, um, I have my husband here, Mr. Peterkin, that's going to help me today. I think he's getting himself together. So, hallelujah. We give God thanks. So while he's getting ready, I just have a quick story. So I'm about to be 55 in a couple of weeks, and I know, right? And so I personally have experienced menopause, and it is no joke. It's no joke. And for when it first started, I didn't know what was happening because I was like, I think I was 46 or 47. And I'm thinking usually it starts like around later, but that wasn't the case. And I started going through all of these changes in my body. And it's not just physical, but it's also mental. And I didn't realize what was happening to me. And so I was going to the doctor, they couldn't find nothing and all kind of stuff. And so I didn't realize that it would be such a challenge, and I thought it was just going to be this little quick thing. I thought since I started at that age, I would be finished by now, but not the case. So as I'm going through the different slides and giving you information, there's so much about this topic that, especially within the church, and our women suffer so bad with these challenges. And I also found that as I was going through the different challenges that it came with, resources were hard to figure out. I remember speaking to someone that's a part of, that's a Christian person. I heard this person had gone through some of the changes, and I went to this person to find out some information, and there was like totally negative in the approach, because it seems like it's this silence that goes along with us women when we're suffering. We try to suffer in silence, and we'll need help so bad, but we won't reach out for help and then be able to help each other. So I really am truly thankful for what our nation is doing with this, with our women, and not just women, but also men, because my husband just turned 55. And if I hadn't been doing researches and finding out things and also being a therapist, I wouldn't be able to help him also with the challenges that he has. We'll just be going at each other and don't even know why we're attacking each other. So, I'm sorry? No, the PowerPoint presentation. Awesome. Okay, so middle adulthood, that's the terminology that you would use for that age range is generativity versus stagnation. That's the what they'll call the clinical term. And that's between that's age 44 to age 60. Okay? Now, menopause. Menopause, the age range for menopause is 45 to 55. And it usually lasts for 7 to 14 years. If we want to define menopause, yes, Mitzi? 7 to 14 years, yes, ma'am. I thought you were the one that says we're not asking no question until we finish. Just teasing her. I know, right? I actually read her face, and I was like, okay. it says, so menopause, the time of life when a woman's ovaries stop producing hormones and menstrual period stops. Natural menopause usually occurs around age 50. For some people, it starts earlier, like in my case, it started a little bit earlier than 50. A woman is said to be in menopause when she hasn't had a period for 12 months in a row and that there's no ease even by treatment. So that means that you're not having your menstrual cycle, and no matter what it is that you go to the doctor for, whatever it is, it doesn't change the fact that it's not coming. Okay? Now, midlife crisis and menopause are not the same thing, but midlife crisis happens in the menopause period. Okay? So that's the difference. Sometimes people kind of confuse midlife crisis with menopause. It's not the same thing, but it's a product. It can be a product, I say, of menopause. Okay? So midlife crisis is a transition of identity and self-confidence that can occur in middle-aged individuals, typically 40 to 60 years old. As you see, it says 40 to 60 years old. So menopause starts later than 40 years old. Okay? Now, some of the triggers of midlife crisis is job loss, health concern, a parent's death or illness, children moving out, or even day-to-day being overwhelmed. The crisis period, this stage typically involves some examination of your doubts, relationship values, and sense of self. Now, interestingly enough, the, the things that you're looking at, like for example, job loss, health concern, death of a parent, and your children moving out, and all of those things. Some of these things can happen on a regular basis through life, but you don't have menopausal symptoms. That's what I was saying. But when you're going through menopause, these, like for example, a health concern, right? So one of the things that started happening to me was I was having anxieties attack, and I couldn't figure out why I was having anxiety attack. Now, I go to the doctor, and there is nothing that could be pinpointed to it, and they recommend antidepressants or anxiety medication. Okay, so I'm just giving you an example of how midlife crisis affect menopause. Okay, there's 3 stages to menopause. You have the perimenopause. This is the time before the actual menopause, and that's like you'll start seeing your period starting getting irregular, right? It'll come for 1 month, then it doesn't come for 2 months, then it starts this back and forth, back and forth. That's what's happened before it actually stopped coming, and you'll have that 12-month period when then it goes into menopause. Okay? So, and we talked about menopause again. It's when it stops. You stop producing hormones that cause menstrual period, and you've gone without your period again for 12 months in a row. Okay? And then stage 3 would be postmenopause. This is after menopause, which is like between 55, 56, up to 60. Okay? Now, symptoms of menopause. Some of you guys recognize these, right? Hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness, and discomfort during sex. Now, I was looking at the children coming in, and I was like, oh, Lord, because some of the things I have to talk about, it might be, so I don't know what you guys thinking, because I do have to talk about some things that might not be appropriate for this age group, smaller children. Okay. 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 So I'll talk about hot flashes and night sweats in the meantime, right? So interestingly enough, it's just weird how it comes, especially the night sweats. To me, I started with night sweats. I don't have hot flashes, and I'm about to be 55. So for me, I have night sweats, and you are soaking wet, like, and it's so uncomfortable. And sometimes my husband, he's wet because I am completely wet, soaked, and then the bed is wet. Then you have to take a sheet and you have to change, and or you have to go prepared. And sometimes I have to have a towel around me. And it's weird because it doesn't happen every night. Sometimes you it doesn't happen for a little bit, and then it just shows back up again. You know. Is it okay now to continue, or no? She's back. Okay. Yeah, but and then you wake up in the morning and it feels it feels like your body have lost something, you know. Yeah, she's here now. Okay. So yeah. So the thing with the post and the and I kind of find it interesting how they have the menopause and the post, because this you have 7 to 14 years. So if you look at, say you start at 50, you are going to go over 60 into the 60s if it doesn't cease. So for some people, even though they're close to 60 or they're in their 60s, they could still be having menopause symptoms and don't even understand why it's taking so long. Right? So one of I find this is something that is very difficult on women, the vaginal dryness and discomfort doing sex, because that's not something your husband will understand, and it's not something that you could easily talk about. um let me say this. I'm very open, like very transparent in the things that we talk about. We're all women and men here, and we're all grown people, but it's not something that is easy to speak about, and then your spouse is trying to satisfy